I'm Ryan Mitchell, 32, and I've been obsessed with tech entrepreneurship since I built my first computer at 13. My family never took me seriously, especially my older brother Nicholas. He was the golden child, while I was the family disappointment. Last month, Nicholas laughed in my face, tossing my business cards across the table. "Stop pretending to be successful," he sneered. If only he knew what would happen just 1 week later. Before I tell you how my brother's face turned ghost white when he realized who actually owned his new company, drop a comment where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been underestimated by family. Growing up in Portland, I lived in the perpetual shadow of my older brother Nicholas. From our earliest days, the contrast between us was stark and unforgiving. Nicholas was everything our parents wished for in a son: athletic, academically gifted, and conventionally successful. By third grade, his bedroom walls were already covered with swimming trophies and academic achievement certificates. Our parents never missed an opportunity to attend his swim meets or academic competitions, cheering loudly from the bleachers with undisguised pride. Meanwhile, I was the kid who dismantled household electronics to see how they worked. When Nicholas excelled in structure and rules, I thrived in creative chaos. My mind worked differently. I could see connections and possibilities that others missed. But this translated to being labeled as unfocused or impractical by teachers and family alike. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" became the unofficial soundtrack of my childhood. I still remember my 10th birthday when I received a soccer ball and sports equipment despite repeatedly asking for a computer programming book. The message was clear. My interests weren't valued or understood. One particularly painful memory stands out from when I was 14. Nicholas had just won a prestigious regional science competition with a conventional but well-executed project on water purification. That same week, I'd created a primitive but innovative app that could translate text in real time using a homemade algorithm. When I excitedly showed my parents, my father barely glanced at it before saying, "That's nice, Ryan, but when are you going to do something meaningful like your brother?" The pattern continued through high school. Nicholas was class president, valedictorian, and prom king. I was the kid who started an underground tech club that the administration initially tried to shut down until we won a state hackathon. Even that victory was overshadowed when Nicholas received a full scholarship to Cornell University to study business finance. College marked another divergence in our paths. Nicholas thrived in the structured academic environment, joining the right fraternities, making the right connections, and graduating with honors. I lasted 2 years at a state university before dropping out, not because I couldn't handle the coursework, but because I was already developing software that didn't fit into my curriculum. I wanted to learn by doing, not by memorizing textbooks. The family gathering after I dropped out remains etched in my memory. Nicholas sat at the dinner table in his Cornell sweater, explaining his summer internship at a prestigious financial firm while our parents nodded approvingly. When attention reluctantly turned to me, I tried explaining my startup idea for a new communication platform. "So you're just quitting college?" my mother interrupted, her voice heavy with disappointment. "I'm not quitting. I'm pursuing a different path," I tried explaining. Nicholas chuckled. "That's what people say when they can't cut it." He turned to our parents. "Don't worry. I'm sure Ryan can get a job at the Apple Store or something. They probably don't require degrees." The laughter around the table stung, but it also hardened my resolve. That night, I made a promise to myself that I would succeed on my own terms, even if my family couldn't see the value in my vision. I wasn't rejecting education, I was seeking a different kind of knowledge that couldn't be found in traditional classrooms. As Nicholas climbed the corporate ladder at various financial institutions, our parents continued to use him as the measuring stick for success. Every holiday gathering became an opportunity to highlight the growing gap between us: Nicholas's promotions, his luxury apartment, his expensive suits and watches. Meanwhile, My journey through the tech startup world was viewed as a series of failures rather than necessary learning experiences. What they didn't understand was that each failure was actually building my resilience, knowledge, and network. I was developing the mindset and skills that would eventually lead to success. Even as they interpreted my path as aimless wandering. Through it all, Nicholas never missed an opportunity to reinforce their perspective, positioning himself as the wise, successful son while painting me as the family's cautionary tale. Despite the constant comparisons and lack of support, a stubborn part of me still sought their approval. I kept showing up to family events, kept sharing my ideas, kept hoping that someday they would see the value in my different approach to life. But as the years passed, I slowly began to realize that I needed to find validation elsewhere. My worth couldn't be measured by their limited understanding of success. The first 3 years after dropping out of college were brutal. My initial startup, a peer-to-peer language learning platform called Speakeasy, collapsed after 6 months when our seed funding dried up and we couldn't secure additional investment. I remember sitting in our tiny rented office space with my 2 co-founders, Austin and Jordan, as we made the painful decision to shut down operations. We had 8,000 users but no sustainable revenue model. That night, Nicholas called to tell me about his promotion and new company car. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. "Maybe now you'll get serious about your life," he said after I congratulated him. "I know a guy who could get you an entry-level position at an investment firm. You'd have to start in the mailroom, but it's better than whatever you're doing now." I declined as politely as I could, which led to another lecture about responsibility and reality. What Nicholas didn't understand was that I wasn't afraid of failure, I was afraid of not trying. My second venture came closer to success. TravelBuddy was an app that connected solo travelers in foreign cities. We built a solid user base of nearly 50,000 people and were generating modest revenue through premium features. For almost a year, I lived off ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, coding 14 hours a day in my cramped studio apartment that doubled as our office. My 2 team members, Dylan and Sophia, worked remotely to save on costs. We were on the verge of securing a significant investment when our largest competitor released an almost identical feature set and leveraged their existing market position to effectively crush us. The investors pulled out, and TravelBuddy slowly bled to death over the next 4 months. That failure hit harder than the first. I had poured everything into the company, my savings, my time, my health. I had to move to an even smaller apartment and take a contract coding job just to make rent. During this period, I barely spoke to my family. I couldn't bear Nicholas's smug questions about my entrepreneurial adventures, or my parents' thinly veiled suggestions about graduate school and real jobs. The Thanksgiving after TravelBuddy collapsed was particularly brutal. Nicholas had just been hired by Wilson & Reed, a prestigious financial services firm, and was moving into a luxury condo in downtown Portland. The entire dinner conversation revolved around his accomplishments, while I silently pushed turkey around my plate. "So, Ryan," Nicholas finally said, turning everyone's attention to me, "still doing that app thing?" "I'm between projects," I answered honestly. "Taking some contract work while I develop my next idea." "Between projects," Nicholas repeated with a laugh. "Is that what we're calling unemployment these days?" "I'm not unemployed. I'm self-employed." "Right. And how much did you make last quarter as the CEO of, what was it again?" Before I could answer, my father interjected. "Nicholas, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you." That comment, intended to defuse the situation, only made it worse. The underlying message was clear: Nicholas was successful, and I was not. My choices were invalid. My path wasn't just different, it was wrong. I left the dinner early, walking for hours through the cold November night, questioning everything. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just chasing fantasies while Nicholas was building a real life. That moment of doubt was my lowest point. The turning point came unexpectedly 2 weeks later. While working on a contract project for a local business, I met Maxwell Freeman, a retired tech executive who had built and sold several successful companies. Something about my work caught his attention, and he asked me to coffee to discuss my background. For 3 hours, I shared my journey, my failures, and my ideas. Unlike my family, Maxwell didn't see a string of failures, he saw valuable learning experiences. He saw potential. You know what separates successful entrepreneurs from unsuccessful ones? He asked me. It's not intelligence or even good ideas. It's persistence and adaptation. You've already demonstrated both. Under Maxwell's mentorship, I began developing what would become my successful company. The concept came from identifying a common pain point across my previous ventures: the difficulty of integrating various digital tools and platforms. I envisioned a universal API ecosystem that could connect disparate software systems seamlessly, a digital bridge that would save companies countless hours and millions of dollars in integration costs. Maxwell introduced me to potential investors who actually understood the technical value of what I was building. With his guidance, I refined my pitch and business model. After 16 rejections, I finally secured a $300,000 seed investment from Brandon Wright, a tech-focused angel investor who had worked with Maxwell in the past. That first investment felt like validation after years of struggle. I called my parents to share the news, hoping they would finally see that I was on a viable path. Their response was tepid caution. "That sounds nice, dear," my mother said. "But is it a real job? Does it have benefits?" Nicholas was even more dismissive when he heard about it during a family dinner. "So someone gave you money to build something that doesn't exist yet? Let me know when you actually have revenue. Until then, it's just another expensive hobby." His words stung, but they no longer defined me. For the first time, I had external confirmation that my vision had value. With funding secured and a clear direction, I incorporated Technova and began the long journey of building what would become one of the most innovative middleware solutions in the industry. With seed funding in my account and Maxwell's mentorship guiding me, I officially founded Technova in the spring of 2018. Our mission was ambitious but clear: create an integration platform that would allow different software systems to communicate seamlessly without custom code. It was a technical challenge that larger companies had attempted but overcomplicated with bloated features and excessive pricing. My first key decision was building the right team. Unlike my previous ventures where I partnered with friends, I now methodically sought out specialists whose skills complemented mine. Garrett Thompson, a brilliant back-end developer I had met at a hackathon, became our chief technology officer. Tyler Evans, with his experience in enterprise sales, joined as our head of business development. Amanda Jenkins, a former project manager at a major tech firm, came on board to keep us organized and focused. We worked out of a small office above a coffee shop in Portland's industrial district. The space was nothing fancy: mismatched furniture, unreliable heating, and walls covered in whiteboard paint where we scribbled code architecture and business models. But it was ours. And for the first time, I was building something with a team that believed in the vision completely. The first 6 months were brutal. We worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, iterating through prototype after prototype. There were heated arguments, technical dead ends, and moments of doubt. Tyler constantly pushed for more market-friendly features while Garrett and I insisted on getting the core technology right first. These creative tensions, though difficult, ultimately strengthened our product. Our breakthrough came 9 months in when we landed our first major client, a medium-sized healthcare software provider struggling to connect their platform with hospital systems. Their technical team had been working for months on custom integrations with minimal success. We implemented our solution in 2 weeks, reducing their integration time by 87% and saving them over $200,000 in development costs. That first success provided more than revenue, it gave us a case study and references. Tyler leveraged this to secure 3 more clients within 2 months. Suddenly, We weren't just another startup with a good idea, we were solving real problems and generating real value. A strategic decision I made early on proved crucial to our eventual confrontation with Nicholas. I deliberately kept a low public profile. While I was the founder and CEO, we presented Technova as a team-led company rather than building a personal brand around me. Our marketing materials focused on our technology and results, not my personal story. I stayed off social media and declined profile pieces in tech publications. This wasn't from modesty but strategy. I'd learned from past failures that flying under the radar allowed us to pivot without public scrutiny. It also meant that competitors underestimated us. And though I wouldn't admit it then, part of me wanted to achieve undeniable success before revealing myself to my family. I wanted evidence they couldn't dismiss. By our second year, Technova had grown to 28 employees and moved to proper offices in downtown Portland. We raised a Series A round of $4.2 million, valuing the company at $18 million. Our client list included healthcare companies, financial institutions, and several Fortune 500 corporations. The middleware solution we built was revolutionizing how companies managed their digital ecosystems. Throughout this growth period, my relationship with my family remained strained. I attended obligatory holidays and birthdays but shared minimal details about my professional life. My parents still asked when I would get a real job. And Nicholas continued to contrast his corporate success with what he perceived as my entrepreneurial floundering. During a family dinner celebrating my father's birthday, Nicholas announced his latest promotion at Wilson & Reed. He was now heading their digital transformation initiative, a prestigious position that came with stock options and a corner office. The best part, he said, looking directly at me, is that I'm working with real technology that actually helps real businesses, not some imaginary startup products. I simply nodded and congratulated him, which seemed to disappoint him. He was looking for an argument, a chance to demonstrate his superior knowledge, but I no longer needed to prove anything. Technova was growing faster than I had imagined, and we were in early acquisition talks with several larger tech companies. As our company expanded, we began moving into sectors that put us in indirect competition with firms like Wilson & Reed. Their traditional financial services were increasingly dependent on the kind of integration technology we specialized in. I knew that many of these established companies were struggling with digital transformation, often spending millions on custom solutions that delivered fraction of our capabilities. It was during our third year that our paths began converging in ways Nicholas couldn't imagine. Wilson & Reed appeared on our radar when one of their technology officers attended a demo of our platform at a financial technology conference. They expressed serious interest in our services, unaware of my connection to one of their senior managers. The irony wasn't lost on me. The company that represented Nicholas's traditional definition of success was now looking to a company like mine to solve problems they couldn't handle internally. When I learned that Nicholas was heading their digital transformation initiative, the very department that would work with our technology, I recognized that fate had set up an encounter that neither of us could have predicted. By this time, Technova's valuation had grown to over $120 million. We had offices in Portland, Seattle, and Austin, with over 100 employees and a client list that included some of the most prestigious companies in America. We were no longer the scrappy startup working above a coffee shop, we were a serious player in the enterprise software space. As our success grew, so did acquisition offers. Several larger tech companies approached us with generous terms, but none felt right until Quantum Dynamics, one of the largest enterprise software companies in the world, made an offer that was too good to refuse, $240 million, with our team remaining intact and me staying on as division president with significant autonomy. The deal included something else that caught my attention. Quantum was looking to expand their financial services vertical and had identified Wilson & Reed as a potential acquisition target. If both deals went through, Technova would essentially become part of the parent company that owned Nicholas's firm. The timing of these deals created a perfect storm. Just as we were finalizing our acquisition by Quantum, they accelerated their timeline for acquiring Wilson and Reed. The companies would be announced simultaneously as part of Quantum's broader expansion strategy. When I learned that I would potentially become Nicholas's boss through this corporate restructuring, I faced a moral dilemma. I could recuse myself from the Wilson and Reed acquisition or embracing it as a chance to finally prove my worth to my brother and parents. After much reflection, I decided to let events unfold naturally. I wouldn't seek revenge, but I wouldn't hide my success either. 3 days before the acquisition announcements, our parents hosted a Sunday dinner. I hadn't seen Nicholas in nearly 2 months, and I arrived intentionally late to minimize interaction before dinner. When I walked in, Nicholas was holding court in the living room, regaling our parents with stories about his latest achievements at Wilson and Reed. "We're on the verge of something big," he was saying as I entered. "The executive team has been dropping hints about a major announcement. I think we're either acquiring a tech company or being acquired ourselves." He looked up, noticing me for the first time. "Hey, little brother. Nice of you to join us." The dinner proceeded with the usual dynamics. Nicholas dominated the conversation, while our parents hung on his every word. I remained quiet, answering direct questions but volunteering little. Nicholas interpreted my silence as envy. "So Ryan," he said during dessert, "what's new in the startup world? Still trying to make it big?" I shrugged. "Things are going well. We've grown considerably this year." "Oh? How many employees now? 5? 10? His tone was condescending. "A bit more than that," I replied vaguely. Nicholas laughed. "Always so mysterious. If things were really going well, you'd be shouting it from the rooftops." I smiled and reached for my wallet, pulling out my Technova business card. It was simple and elegant, with just our logo, my name, and Founder and CEO beneath it. I slid it across the table to him. Nicholas picked it up, examining it with exaggerated interest. "Founder and CEO, huh? Impressive title for a company no one's heard of." He flicked the card back toward me, but deliberately missed, sending it flying off the edge of the table. "Stop pretending to be successful, Ryan. It's getting sad." Our mother gasped. "Nicholas! That was rude." "It's fine," I said, retrieving the card from the floor. "Nicholas has always had strong opinions about my career choices." "Because I care about you," he insisted, though his tone suggested otherwise. "You've been chasing these tech fantasies for years while real opportunities pass you by. Wilson and Reed is hiring junior analysts, you know. With your background, you might qualify." I could put in a good word. I pocketed my card and looked him directly in the eyes. "I appreciate the offer, Nicholas, but I'm happy with my current position." "What position?" "CEO of a company operating out of your apartment?" Our father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Boys, let's not do this tonight." "It's not an argument, Dad," Nicholas continued. "I'm trying to help Ryan see reality. The tech startup fantasy is fine in your 20s, but he's in his 30s now. It's time to join the real world." I excused myself to help clear the dishes, retreating to the kitchen where I took a deep breath. In 3 days, Nicholas would learn exactly how unsuccessful I'd been. Part of me wanted to reveal everything right then, to see the shock on his face, but a stronger part knew that the natural revelation would be more impactful. When I returned to the dining room, Nicholas was showing our parents brochures of luxury condos he was considering purchasing. The implied message was clear: this is what real success looks like. "Ryan," my mother said as I sat down, "Nicholas mentioned there might be job opportunities at his company. Wouldn't that be wonderful? You two could work together." I smiled politely. "That's an interesting thought, Mom." "He'd have to start at the bottom," Nicholas clarified quickly. "But it would be a foot in the door to a real career." "I'll keep it in mind," I said, knowing full well what was coming. As I was leaving that night, my father pulled me aside. "Your brother means well," he said quietly. "He's just concerned about your future." I know, Dad. But you don't need to worry about me. My future is secure. A steady paycheck and retirement plan is secure, he countered. This startup business is always a gamble. I hugged him goodbye, realizing that in 3 days, his entire perception of me would change. I drove home feeling a complex mix of emotions: anticipation, nervousness, but also a twinge of sadness. The validation I'd sought for so long was finally coming, but it felt hollow knowing it would only arrive when attached to external markers of success that my family recognized. That night, I called Maxwell, the mentor who had believed in me when no one else did. The acquisitions are being announced Monday, I told him. Nicholas has no idea. How does that make you feel? He asked. Conflicted, I admitted. Part of me wants to see the look on his face when he realizes I'm his boss. But another part wishes we could have connected as equals without this dramatic revelation. Family relationships are complicated, Maxwell said wisely. Just remember why you built Technova in the first place. It wasn't to prove Nicholas wrong, it was to create something valuable that solves real problems. His words stayed with me as I prepared for the announcement that would change everything. This wasn't about revenge or validation, it was about the culmination of years of hard work and persistence finally being recognized. The Monday morning of the acquisition announcement arrived with a sense of surreal calm. I woke at 5:30 a.m., earlier than usual, and went through my morning routine with deliberate focus. This was the day everything would change, not just for Technova and our team, but for my relationship with my family, especially Nicholas. By 7 a.m., I was in conference calls with quantum dynamics executives, reviewing final details of the announcement strategy. Both acquisitions, Technova and Wilson and Reed, would be announced simultaneously at 10 a.m., followed by immediate all-hands meetings at both companies. As the founder of Technova and incoming division president at Quantum, I would personally address the Wilson and Reed staff at 2 p.m. Are you sure you want to handle this personally? Asked Calvin Monroe, Quantum's chief strategy officer. Given your personal connection, we could send someone else. I'm sure, I replied firmly. This needs to come from me. The truth was more complicated than I let on. Yes, I wanted to be there when Nicholas learned the truth, but not out of petty revenge. I needed to see this moment through. To complete the circle that had begun all those years ago when my family dismissed my unconventional path. At 9:55 a.m., the press release went live. Quantum Dynamics acquires Technova for $240 million, Wilson and Reed for $180 million in strategic expansion. My phone immediately began buzzing with congratulatory messages from investors, employees, and industry colleagues. Conspicuously absent were any messages from my family. They either hadn't seen the news or didn't realize its significance. Our Technova all-hands meeting was emotional but celebratory. I thanked every team member for their contributions, assured them about our future within Quantum, and outlined the exciting opportunities ahead. Garrett, my CTO, presented me with a framed copy of our original whiteboard sketches from our coffee shop office days. From impossible idea to $240 million, he said as the team applauded. You made believers of all of us, Ryan. At noon, I met privately with Maxwell over lunch. He had been more than a mentor, he had been the first person to truly believe in my vision when everyone else saw only risk and fantasy. How does it feel? He asked as we clinked glasses in a quiet toast. Overwhelming, I admitted. Everything we worked for is validated, but the personal part still lies ahead, he finished for me. I nodded. In 2 hours, I'll be standing in front of Nicholas and his colleagues as their new boss. After years of him dismissing my work as childish fantasies. Maxwell studied me carefully. What do you hope happens when he sees you? The question caught me off guard. I'd imagined this moment countless times but had never fully examined my own expectations. I don't want to humiliate him, I said finally. But I want him to see me, really see me, maybe for the first time. I want him to understand that there are many paths to success. Not just the conventional one he chose. Just remember, Maxwell cautioned, how he reacts says more about him than about you. Your success is already established. It doesn't need his acknowledgement to be real. At 1:30 p.m., my car arrived at Wilson & Reed's downtown headquarters. The building was impressive, 30 floors of glass and steel projecting corporate prosperity. As I rode the elevator to the 25th floor conference room, I felt strangely calm. Years of pitching to skeptical investors had prepared me for high-pressure situations. Laura Thompson, Quantum's head of corporate communications, met me in the reception area. The Wilson & Reed executive team has been briefed about the acquisition, but the general staff hasn't been told who acquired them or who will be leading the new division. They're assembled in the main conference hall now. And Nicholas Mitchell? Is he there? Laura checked her tablet. Yes, Nicholas Mitchell, Senior Manager of Digital Transformation. He's seated in the third row, center section. We walked toward the conference hall doors, flanked by Quantum's executive team. Through the small windows in the door, I could see approximately 200 Wilson & Reed employees seated in rows, whispering nervously among themselves. On stage, Wilson & Reed CEO, James Wilson, was addressing them. Change can be uncomfortable, he was saying, but I assure you this acquisition represents tremendous opportunity for all of us. Quantum Dynamics is one of the most innovative companies in the world, and they've chosen us because they value our expertise and client relationships. Laura squeezed my arm. Ready? I nodded. And we entered through a side door, remaining in the wings as James continued. I know you have questions about leadership moving forward. I'm pleased to introduce the founder of Technova, which was also acquired by Quantum today, who will be heading our newly formed financial technology division. This was it. I took a deep breath and walked onto the stage as James announced, Please welcome Ryan Mitchell. The room erupted in polite applause as I shook James's hand and took the microphone. My eyes immediately found Nicholas in the third row. The color had drained from his face as recognition dawned. He was clutching a coffee cup midway to his mouth, frozen in shock. Thank you, James, I began. I'm excited about the future we'll build together. Technova and Wilson & Reed complement each other perfectly. Our cutting-edge integration technology combined with your financial expertise and client relationships creates something truly powerful. As I spoke, I watched Nicholas slowly lower his coffee cup, his hand visibly shaking. The employees around him were focused on me, unaware of the personal drama unfolding in their midst. Transformation isn't just about technology, I continued. It's about vision and adaptability. It's about recognizing that the path to innovation isn't always linear or conventional. Nicholas suddenly stood up, his movement jerky and uncoordinated. He took a step backward, bumping into his chair. The coffee cup slipped from his hand, splattering its contents across the floor and several colleagues. Without apologizing, he continued backing away, his eyes never leaving mine. Excuse me, he said loudly, interrupting my speech. This is ridiculous. You can't be serious. The room fell silent. Every head turned toward Nicholas. Is there a question? I asked calmly, maintaining my professional demeanor. A question? Nicholas repeated, his voice rising. Yes, I have a question. How the hell are you standing there? This is some kind of joke, right? My little brother pretending to be important again? Uncomfortable murmurs spread through the audience. James Wilson stepped forward, his expression severe. Mr. Mitchell. This is highly inappropriate. Nicholas ignored him, pointing at me accusingly. 3 days ago he was showing off business cards at a family dinner, playing entrepreneur. Now he's supposed to be our boss? This is absurd. 2 security personnel had appeared at the back of the room, moving slowly toward Nicholas. I raised my hand to pause them, wanting to handle this myself. Nicholas, I said, keeping my voice steady, this is neither the time nor place for personal matters. We can discuss this privately after the meeting. Discuss what? He shouted. How you've been lying to the family for years. Pretending to struggle while secretly building some company? Or how you deliberately humiliated me by not warning me about this? An older woman I recognized as the head of HR had reached Nicholas now. "Mr. Mitchell," she said firmly, "you need to step outside immediately." Nicholas shook off her hand. "Do you people know who this is?" "This is my younger brother who's been failing at startups for years. This has to be some kind of mistake or scam." The security personnel had reached him now. Each took an arm, firmly but professionally. "Let's continue this discussion outside, sir," one said. As they escorted a still protesting Nicholas from the room, an uncomfortable silence hung in the air. 200 pairs of eyes turned back to me, waiting to see how I would handle this bizarre situation. I took a deep breath. "I apologize for that interruption. As you may have gathered, Nicholas is indeed my brother. Family business can be complicated sometimes." This earned a small ripple of nervous laughter. "But our professional relationship is separate from our personal one. Each of you will be evaluated on your merits and contributions, not on personal connections." The remainder of the meeting proceeded without incident. I outlined the integration plan, addressed concerns about job security, all positions would be maintained, and shared the exciting growth opportunities ahead. By the end, I had managed to shift the focus back to business. Though I knew the incident with Nicholas would be the talk of the office for weeks to come. After the meeting, James Wilson and Laura Thompson met with me in a private office. "Well," James said, "that was unexpected." "I apologize," I replied. "I should have disclosed my relationship with Nicholas before the announcement." Laura shook her head. "His reaction was completely unprofessional, regardless of your relationship. HR is meeting with him now. I don't think I need to tell you how serious this is." I nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions. I had anticipated shock from Nicholas, but not a public meltdown that might cost him his job. Despite our differences, that wasn't what I wanted. "What happens to him now?" I asked. James and Laura exchanged glances. "That's up to HR," James said carefully. "But an outburst like that, questioning the legitimacy of the acquisition, making personal accusations against leadership in front of the entire company, it doesn't look good, Ryan." I left the meeting with a heavy heart. The vindication I had imagined felt hollow in the face of Nicholas's public humiliation. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. On my way out, I passed the HR department. Through the glass wall, I could see Nicholas sitting stiffly in a chair, his face still flushed with anger and embarrassment. Our eyes met briefly, and the mixture of rage, shock, and betrayal in his expression cut deeper than any insult he had ever thrown at me. As my car took me back to Technova's offices, I reflected on Maxwell's words from earlier. How Nicholas reacted said more about him than about me. But I couldn't escape the feeling that I had inadvertently engineered his downfall by not warning him privately before the public announcement. The question now was, what happened next? Both for Nicholas's career and for our already strained relationship. Word of Nicholas's meltdown spread quickly through both companies. By the next morning, the story had taken on almost mythical proportions, with some versions claiming he had thrown his coffee at me or flipped a table. The reality was bad enough without embellishment. I tried calling Nicholas that evening and again the next morning, but my calls went straight to voicemail. Our parents called, confused and concerned after receiving a cryptic, angry message from Nicholas about me sabotaging his career. "What's going on between you two?" my father demanded. "Nicholas says you showed up at his company pretending to be his boss?" I explained the acquisitions and my new role. The long silence that followed spoke volumes. $240 million? My mother finally said, her voice small with disbelief. "Yes," I confirmed. "Technova has been quite successful. Why didn't you tell us?" my father asked, sounding hurt rather than angry. "Would you have believed me?" I countered gently. "Every time I tried to share my work, you compared it unfavorably to Nicholas's real job." Another long silence followed. We need to process this, my father finally said. And we need to check on Nicholas. He sounded, not himself. At 10:30 that morning, I received a call from Patricia Jenkins, Wilson and Reed's head of HR, requesting an urgent meeting. When I arrived at her office, James Wilson was already there, looking uncomfortable. We have a situation, Patricia began without preamble. Yesterday, following his outburst, Nicholas was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. This morning, he sent a company-wide email with some concerning content. She turned her monitor toward me. The email, sent at 3:47 a.m. to the entire Wilson and Reed staff list, was a rambling manifesto accusing me of corporate espionage, claiming I had built Technova using stolen ideas from his work at Wilson and Reed, and suggesting the acquisition was part of an elaborate revenge scheme. These accusations are completely false, I said immediately. We know, James assured me. The timeline alone makes them impossible. Nicholas joined Wilson and Reed 3 years after Technova was founded. The issue, Patricia continued, is that this constitutes serious defamation against both you and Quantum. Combined with yesterday's public insubordination, we have no choice but to terminate his employment, effective immediately. My stomach sank. This was escalating beyond anything I had anticipated. Is there any alternative? Perhaps a transfer to a different division or location? Patricia shook her head. The company-wide email crossed a line. His position was already untenable after yesterday, but this makes it impossible to retain him. I left the meeting feeling responsible despite the rational part of my brain knowing that Nicholas had created this situation himself. His reaction to my success had been entirely his choice. That afternoon, I received a text from Nicholas. Happy now? You've destroyed everything I've worked for. I called immediately, and to my surprise he answered. Nicholas. I never intended. Save it, he cut me off. You could have warned me. You let me walk into that meeting blind, knowing what was coming. You're right, I admitted. I should have told you privately first. Why didn't you? His voice was tight with barely controlled emotion. The question forced me to examine my own motivations honestly. Because part of me wanted you to feel what I've felt all these years, underestimated, dismissed. I wanted you to see me as successful on my own terms. Not just as your little brother playing at business. So this was revenge. No, I insisted. Not revenge. Validation, maybe? But I never wanted you to lose your job. Your reaction was unexpected. He laughed bitterly. What did you expect? Applause? Congratulations for hiding your success from your family for years? I didn't hide it, I corrected him. I tried to share it many times. Remember last Christmas when I mentioned securing Series B funding? You changed the subject to your bonus. When I tried to tell Mom and Dad about our expansion to Seattle, you interrupted with stories about your corporate retreat. The line went silent for several seconds. I need to go, he finally said. Unlike you, I have to start looking for a job now. Nicholas, let me help. I can. I don't want your help, he snapped. I don't want anything from you. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone. I had imagined many versions of this confrontation over the years, but none of them ended with this level of bitterness. The following day brought another uncomfortable conversation, this time with my parents, who requested I come over for dinner. When I arrived, the atmosphere was tense and awkward. My mother hugged me uncertainly, as if I were a stranger. My father shook my hand formally instead of our usual backslap greeting. Nicholas won't be joining us, my mother said unnecessarily. He's taking some time. Dinner was a strange affair. My parents asked hesitant questions about Technova, trying to understand the business I had built while they weren't paying attention. I explained our technology in simple terms, described our growth journey, and shared anecdotes about the challenges we'd overcome. All this time, my father said, shaking his head, "We thought you were struggling." I was, I replied honestly. Building a company isn't easy. There were many moments of doubt and near failure. But why didn't you tell us about the acquisition before it happened? My mother asked. Before Nicholas found out that way. I looked at them both, really looked at them, and saw the hurt beneath their confusion. Would you have believed me? Every time I tried to share my successes, they were dismissed as less significant than Nicholas's achievements. My father started to object, then stopped, recognition dawning in his eyes. We did do that, didn't we? My mother reached across the table for my hand. We didn't understand what you were building. It seemed so intangible compared to Nicholas's corporate career. I know, I said gently. And that's why I stopped sharing. It was easier than facing constant comparison. The dinner ended with tentative reconciliation. My parents were trying to process both their pride in my unexpected success and their guilt over years of dismissing my path. As for Nicholas, they admitted he was staying with a friend, refusing to speak to any of us. A week after the acquisition announcement, Maxwell invited me to dinner at his home. His wife Sandra greeted me warmly before leaving us to talk privately in Maxwell's study. How are you holding up? He asked as we settled into leather armchairs. It's complicated, I admitted. The company transition is going well, but my family situation is a mess. Nicholas won't speak to me. My parents are walking on eggshells. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Maxwell nodded thoughtfully. Success often reveals the cracks in relationships that were already there. Your brother's reaction wasn't about the acquisition itself, it was about his own insecurities being exposed. What do you mean? Nicholas built his identity around being the successful one. The one who made the right choices. Your success challenges that narrative. Instead of celebrating you, he sees your achievement as diminishing his own. I considered this. So what now? How do I fix this? You might not be able to, at least not immediately, Maxwell said gently. Nicholas needs to work through his own issues. But you can decide what kind of leader and brother you want to be moving forward. His words stayed with me as I drove home. What kind of leader and brother did I want to be? One who lorded his success over others, or one who used his position to lift people up? The answer came to me gradually over the next few days. I couldn't change Nicholas's reaction or force reconciliation, but I could extend an opportunity when he was ready. Not a handout or an unearned position, but a genuine chance to rebuild on equal footing. I drafted an email to Nicholas, then deleted it. This wasn't something for email or text. It needed to be face-to-face, when he was ready to listen. In the meantime, I focused on leading the integration of our companies with transparency and empathy, ensuring that the Wilson and Reed employees felt valued despite the rocky start. 2 weeks after the acquisition, I received an unexpected text from Nicholas. Coffee tomorrow? Neutral territory. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The coffee shop Nicholas chose was in a neighborhood halfway between our homes, truly neutral territory. I arrived 10 minutes early, nervously checking my phone while waiting for him. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. In just 2 weeks, Nicholas looked like he had aged years. The confident, sometimes arrogant posture was gone, replaced by the slightly hunched shoulders of someone carrying an invisible weight. He ordered a black coffee and sat across from me, avoiding eye contact. Thanks for meeting me, I said, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Nicholas nodded. I needed time to process everything. I understand. And I'm sorry about how everything happened. I should have told you privately before the announcement. He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. Why didn't you? Be honest. I took a deep breath. Because I wanted you to see me succeed on my own terms. After years of being dismissed as the family failure, I wanted one moment where you couldn't diminish what I'd built. To my surprise, Nicholas didn't argue. He stared into his coffee. I've been doing a lot of thinking about why I reacted the way I did. Why I couldn't just be happy for you. And I realized something uncomfortable. My entire identity was built around being the successful brother. The one who made the right choices. When you walked into that conference room as my boss, it wasn't just surprising, it shattered my whole self-image. His honesty caught me off guard. This was a side of Nicholas I'd never seen: vulnerable, reflective. I never wanted to be in competition with you, I said quietly. I just wanted respect for my different path. Nicholas nodded slowly. I know that now. But for years I needed you to be less successful to validate my choices. How messed up is that? It's human, I offered. We all need validation. He looked up sharply. Don't make excuses for me, Ryan. I was cruel to you. I mocked your dreams. I dismissed your work because it didn't fit my narrow definition of success. The acknowledgement was something I'd wanted for years, but now that it was happening, I felt no triumph, only a sad recognition of wasted time and unnecessary pain. Where do we go from here? I asked. Nicholas straightened his shoulders. I've applied for several positions. Had a few interviews. And it's humbling, he admitted. Having to explain why I left Wilson and Reed. Starting over somewhere new. I hesitated before speaking my next words carefully. I have a proposition for you. But I want to be clear that this isn't charity or nepotism. Nicholas tensed visibly. I don't want a handout, Ryan. It's not. Quantum is launching a new division focusing on financial technology consulting. We need people who understand traditional financial services but are willing to learn new approaches. It would be a lateral move from your position at Wilson and Reed, possibly even a step down initially. No special treatment. You'd report to Garrett, not me. He studied me suspiciously. Why would you do this after how I treated you? Because you're my brother, I said simply. And because despite everything, you're good at what you do. Your technical assessments at Wilson and Reed were actually impressive. Your approach was wrong, but your analysis was solid. Nicholas looked surprised. You read my work? Of course. I did my homework before the acquisition. He fell silent, considering the offer. I'd have to earn my position. Prove myself. Everyone does. Including me. 2 days later. Nicholas accepted the position. It wasn't an immediate fix for our relationship, but it was a beginning. Working in separate divisions meant minimal direct interaction, giving us space to rebuild personally while maintaining professional boundaries. The dinner with our parents the following Sunday was another step in the healing process. For the first time in our adult lives, either of us was positioned as more successful than the other. We were just two brothers on different paths, each valuable in its own way. I owe you both an apology, my father said unexpectedly during dessert. We compared you constantly, creating a competition that never needed to exist. My mother nodded, her eyes moist. We thought we were motivating you, but we were actually forcing you into boxes that didn't fit. I made my own choices, Nicholas said. Don't take that responsibility from me. And I could have been more open about my journey, I added, instead of pulling away when I felt misunderstood. That dinner marked the beginning of a new family dynamic, one built on mutual respect rather than comparison. It wasn't perfect or immediate, but it was real progress. Over the next 6 months, Nicholas proved himself at Quantum. He worked harder than anyone else, arriving early and leaving late, determined to succeed on merit alone. We gradually rebuilt our personal relationship through occasional lunches and family gatherings, finding common ground we hadn't known existed. One evening, nearly 8 months after the acquisition, Nicholas came to my office after hours. Got a minute? He asked, hovering in the doorway. Of course. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat down, placing a familiar object between us, my Technova business card, the same one he had tossed across our parents' dining table. I kept this, he admitted. After that night. I don't know why. I picked up the card, remembering the hurt I'd felt when he dismissed it so casually. A lot has changed since then. I was wrong, Nicholas said simply. Not just about your company, but about what success looks like. I had such a narrow definition: corner office, prestigious title, salary. I never considered that success could look like building something meaningful from nothing. We each have our own path, I said. Yours isn't wrong either, just different. Nicholas smiled, a genuine smile without the competitive edge I'd grown accustomed to. The irony is that I'm happier now in this step-down position than I ever was climbing the corporate ladder at Wilson & Reed. I was so focused on the next promotion, the next status symbol, that I never stopped to ask if I was actually fulfilled. His words resonated with me. Despite achieving everything I'd worked for, true fulfillment came not from proving Nicholas wrong, but from creating technology that solved real problems and building a company where people could do their best work. The journey from that humiliating moment when Nicholas tossed my card to our current reconciliation had been unpredictable and often painful. But the lessons learned along the way were invaluable. Success means different things to different people. Family relationships can be healed, even after years of hurt. And sometimes, the validation we seek from others is less important than the confidence we build in ourselves. Today, Technova continues to thrive as part of quantum dynamics. Nicholas has been promoted twice based on his performance, earning respect throughout the organization. Our parents have become our biggest supporters, finally understanding and appreciating our different approaches to life and career. As for me, I've learned that true success isn't measured by acquisition prices or corner offices. It's found in building something meaningful, in lifting others up rather than tearing them down, and in finding the courage to follow your own path even when no one else believes in it. If you've ever felt underestimated or dismissed by those closest to you, remember that your worth isn't determined by their understanding of your journey. Keep building, keep growing, and stay true to your vision. Success may not look the way others expect, but authenticity always finds its way to the surface. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated by family or friends who later had to eat their words? Or maybe you're still on that journey of proving yourself? Drop a comment below and share your story. And if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. I share new stories of resilience and unexpected success every week. Thank you for watching, and remember, the path less traveled may be harder to walk, but the view from the top is all your own.